Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The following documentary-style masterclass explores the historical trends, economic shifts, and strategic evolutions within the digital marketing landscape of the United States. This content is provided strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute professional business, financial, legal, or investment advice. The digital economy is highly volatile, and marketing algorithms, platform policies, and consumer behaviors change rapidly. Case studies and historical data discussed do not reflect guaranteed outcomes for any individual business or marketing campaign. Any strategies or historical trends analyzed here should be thoroughly researched and vetted through your own due diligence before implementation. Viewers are strongly advised to consult with certified professionals regarding their specific business operations, tax liabilities, and corporate strategies. Imagine an invisible commodity, one that weighs absolutely nothing, yet holds the power to dictate the rise and fall of Fortune 500 companies, sway national elections, and fundamentally rewire the neural pathways of the American consumer. In the early 2000s, this commodity was virtually untapped, scattered across fragmented bulletin boards and chronological news feeds. Today, it is the most fiercely contested resource on the planet, driving a multi-billion-dollar industry that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right in the palm of your hand. That commodity is human attention. Consider this staggering reality. Just 2 decades ago, the pinnacle of American marketing was the multi-million-dollar Super Bowl television commercial, an expensive gamble broadcast to a massive, yet entirely anonymous, audience. It was the era of spray and pray marketing. You paid for the megaphone, shouted your message into the void, and hoped the right demographic was sitting on their couch at that exact moment. Fast forward to the present day, and the American attention economy has transformed into a highly weaponized algorithmic commerce engine. Today, platforms do not just know your age and zip code. They track how many milliseconds you hover over an image, analyze the microfluctuations in your scrolling speed, and predict your purchasing intent before you even consciously recognize a need. But how exactly did the United States transition from the primitive era of static banner ads to an advanced landscape dominated by artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, and hyper-targeted social media warfare? And more importantly, what is the hidden mechanism that legacy brands failed to understand, leading to their absolute eradication, while entirely new, digitally native companies built billion-dollar empires overnight? You are about to discover the underlying architecture of this digital revolution, a transformation that has completely redefined the concept of consumerism in America. To understand the sheer magnitude of this shift, we must first look at the psychological vulnerability of the early internet user. In the beginning, platforms like MySpace and early Facebook were viewed simply as digital town squares, places for college students to share photographs and update statuses. Marketers initially treated these platforms with profound skepticism, viewing them as secondary channels completely inferior to print media, radio, and television. The prevailing corporate mindset was heavily entrenched in outbound marketing, which relied on interrupting the consumer's day with a disruptive message. However, a quiet revolution was brewing beneath the surface of those early social networks. The engineers building these platforms realized that every click, every like, and every shared link was a granular data point. When aggregated, these data points formed comprehensive psychological profiles of the American public. The transition from outbound interruption to inbound algorithmic targeting marked the single greatest paradigm shift in the history of global commerce. Brands were no longer required to guess what the consumer wanted. The consumer was actively, albeit unknowingly, providing a real-time roadmap of their desires, insecurities, and aspirations. This masterclass is designed to dissect that exact roadmap. For the American business owner, the aspiring digital strategist, or the critical consumer navigating this landscape, the problem you face today is not a lack of available platforms, but rather a profound crisis of signal versus noise. You are operating in an environment where ad costs are skyrocketing, organic reach is frequently throttled by opaque algorithm updates, and traditional marketing tactics are yielding diminishing returns. The strategies that worked seamlessly 5 years ago are now obsolete, resulting in wasted capital and stagnant growth. Through a meticulous examination of case studies and historical trends, we are going to dismantle the complex machinery of American social media marketing. We will trace the evolutionary steps from the launch of the first self-serve advertising platforms to the current era of short-form video dominance and creator-led commerce. By understanding the foundational architecture of these platforms and the economic incentives that drive their development, You will gain the analytical framework necessary to navigate the modern digital economy. You will learn how to interpret the shifting tides of consumer behavior, how to contextualize algorithm modifications not as obstacles, but as predictable market adjustments, and how to position your messaging to align with the psychological realities of the modern scrolling audience. This is not about chasing fleeting viral trends or manipulating systems for short-term visibility. This is a deep, structural analysis of how communication, commerce, and culture have entirely merged within the United States, providing you with the clarity required to adapt, survive, and build sustainable influence in an increasingly complex digital frontier. Let us trace the exact historical trends that brought us to this moment. Imagine if you were operating a business in the late 2000s. The concept of digital marketing was essentially equivalent to purchasing a digital billboard. You would rent space on a highly trafficked website, pay a flat fee based on estimated impressions, and hope that out of the millions of random visitors, a fraction might be interested in your specific product. This was the chronological era of the internet, where content simply appeared in the order it was published. There was no curation, no behavioral analysis, and absolutely no predictive modeling. For a local hardware store owner or a specialized software developer, this environment was incredibly inefficient. The waste of advertising spend was astronomical because the targeting capabilities were limited to broad categories like age, gender, and geographic region. You were paying to show gardening tools to people who lived in high-rise apartments simply because they fell into a generic demographic bracket. The true paradigm shift, the moment that forever altered the economic trajectory of the United States, was the deployment of the social feedback loop, most notably through the introduction of the like button and the subsequent integration of the tracking pixel. These were not merely features designed to enhance user experience. They were highly sophisticated data harvesting tools. Let us look at a practical case study of a character we will call David, an independent coffee roaster based in Seattle. In the year 2010, David might have relied on foot traffic and local print advertisements. But as social media platforms evolved, they introduced a self-serve advertising dashboard that allowed someone like David to bypass traditional media gatekeepers entirely. The tracking pixel allowed platforms to monitor consumer behavior, not just within the walled garden of the social network, but across the entire internet. When a user clicked on a link to read an article about espresso machines, added a specialized coffee grinder to a digital shopping cart, or even lingered on a video about latte art, that behavioral data was captured, categorized, and fed back into a centralized algorithmic engine. This created an environment of hyper-targeting that had never been witnessed in the history of global commerce. Advertisers were no longer bidding on demographics. They were bidding on specific human behaviors and psychological intents. By the time we reached the mid-2010s, the platforms had amassed such a staggering volume of historical data that they could predict, with frightening accuracy, which specific user was most likely to complete a purchase on a Tuesday evening after watching a specific genre of video. For our business owner David, this meant he could direct his marketing budget exclusively toward individuals who had a demonstrated historical trend of purchasing premium coffee beans online within the last 30 days. The potential outcomes for small businesses were transformative. This democratization of advertising technology allowed digitally native direct-to-consumer brands to completely bypass retail supply chains and build massive operations almost overnight, strictly by leveraging algorithmic efficiency. However, this efficiency introduced a brutal new economic reality known as the real-time bidding auction. Unlike traditional television or print media, where prices were fixed and negotiated behind closed doors, social media advertising space is sold in milliseconds through automated auctions. Every single time an American consumer opens an application on their smartphone in the year 2026, millions of algorithms simultaneously calculate the value of that specific individual attention at that exact moment. If 3 different companies all want to show an advertisement to a 35-year-old homeowner in Texas who recently searched for kitchen renovations, their respective algorithms bid against each other. The platform awards the digital real estate to the highest bidder, or the most highly optimized advertisement. This created a highly competitive, pay-to-play ecosystem. As more businesses flooded into these platforms, realizing the incredible return on investment possible through targeted advertising, the supply of available newsfeed space remained relatively static, while the demand skyrocketed. Basic economic principles dictate that when demand vastly exceeds supply, prices inflate. The historical trend shows a massive year-over-year increase in the cost to acquire a single customer. The digital gold rush where clicks cost pennies was over. Businesses that failed to adapt to the rising costs Those that continued to rely on mediocre creative assets and lazy targeting parameters found their profit margins instantly eradicated by the merciless efficiency of the auction system. You were no longer just competing with the business across the street. You were competing with multinational corporations, highly funded venture capital startups, and thousands of other aggressive advertisers for the exact same square inch of glass on a mobile device. To survive this escalating auction, marketers had to become aggressively scientific. They began utilizing advanced strategies like lookalike audiences, where they would upload a database of their best existing customers, and the platform artificial intelligence would scour its billions of users to find completely new individuals who shared identical behavioral patterns, purchasing histories, and hidden psychological traits. It was a masterpiece of statistical probability. The system learned and optimized itself with every dollar spent, getting smarter, faster, and more integrated into the daily fabric of American life. But just as the corporate world grew comfortable with this hyper-targeted, pixel-driven ecosystem, believing they had finally mastered the formula for predictable revenue, the ground shifted violently beneath them once again. The platforms realized that static images and text-based articles, no matter how perfectly targeted, were no longer sufficient to maintain the increasingly fractured attention span of the modern consumer. A new format was emerging, one that was infinitely more engaging, highly immersive, and capable of generating a level of neurological dependency that static news feeds could never achieve. The entire architecture of the social graph, the foundational concept of connecting with friends and family that built these tech empires in the first place, was about to be completely dismantled and replaced by something far more powerful and infinitely more disruptive to the American market. And it started with the realization that the algorithm no longer needed to know who your friends were. It only needed to know what you could not stop watching. The shift from the social graph to the interest graph was not a gentle evolution. It was an extinction-level event for traditional digital marketers. For years, the foundational strategy of American social media marketing was audience accumulation. Brands spent millions of dollars acquiring followers, operating under the assumption that this digital real estate was a permanent asset. You built the audience, you owned the distribution, and you monetized that distribution at your own pace. But as the competition for human attention reached a breaking point, platforms recognized a fundamental flaw in this model. People were becoming incredibly bored with the curated, highly polished highlight reels of their acquaintances and the static, overly commercialized advertisements from corporations. The platforms realized that to maximize the time users spent on their applications, they needed to completely abandon the concept of showing you what your friends were doing. Instead, they needed to show you the most highly engaging, psychologically stimulating content available on the entire internet, regardless of who created it. This birthed the era of the algorithmic content feed, fundamentally rewriting the rules of digital commerce in the United States. To illustrate the catastrophic impact of this shift, imagine a business owner named Sarah. Let us say Sarah launched a specialized athletic wear company in 2018. Over 3 years, she invested heavily in acquiring 100,000 followers on legacy photo sharing applications. Her marketing strategy was simple and predictable. She would hire professional photographers, organize expensive studio shoots, post beautiful static images of her apparel, and predictably convert a specific percentage of her followers into paying customers. Her business was stable, and her revenue was directly tied to the size of her established audience. Then the algorithm changed. Almost overnight, the platforms deprioritized static images and content from followed accounts in favor of short-form, vertical video content served from completely unknown creators. The priority shifted entirely from relationship-based distribution to retention-based distribution. Suddenly, Sarah realized her expensive, highly polished studio photographs were only reaching a fraction of a percent of the audience she had paid to acquire. The distribution was being choked off deliberately. The platforms were essentially telling brands that historical loyalty meant nothing. The only thing that mattered was whether your content could stop a user from scrolling for 3 seconds and hold their attention for 30 seconds. The metrics that dictated business survival completely transformed. Marketers were no longer obsessing over follower growth or basic engagement rates. They were forced into the trenches of media production, analyzing granular retention curves, 3-second hook rates, and average view durations. The algorithm became a ruthless meritocratic judge. If Sarah posted a video and 70% of the audience swiped away within the first 3 seconds, the platform immediately flagged that piece of content as unengaging and killed its distribution, regardless of her 100,000 followers. Conversely, if a completely new brand with 0 followers posted a raw, unpolished video shot on a smartphone that successfully retained viewer attention for 45 seconds, the algorithmic engine would recognize the high engagement signal and distribute that video to millions of highly targeted feeds across the country. This represented a massive democratization of reach, but it came with a punishing requirement for constant, high-velocity content production. The historical trend of launching one major marketing campaign per quarter was entirely dead. By the time we reached the mid-2020s, specifically navigating the landscape of 2026, the demand for content volume has become staggering. American businesses are no longer competing on the quality of their professional cinematography. They are competing on the psychological hook of their messaging and the raw volume of their output. Brands have had to restructure their entire marketing departments, firing traditional copywriters and hiring teams of native video editors and on-camera talent. The corporate voice has been forced to become humanized, casual, and hyper-relevant to rapidly shifting cultural trends. If you are studying this from a strategic perspective, you must understand the underlying economic incentive driving this behavior. The platforms are pushing short-form video not because they care about entertainment, but because it maximizes ad inventory. If a user spends 10 minutes looking at a single long-form article, the platform can perhaps show them 2 advertisements. If that same user spends 10 minutes rapidly scrolling through 20 different short-form videos, the platform can inject 5, 6, or 7 highly targeted video advertisements into that same chronological window. This massive increase in available ad inventory is the engine driving the modern attention economy. To survive this environment, marketers develop the strategy of algorithmic hooking. They realize that the human brain, when subjected to endless scrolling, requires a pattern interrupt to break the state of passivity. This is why you began seeing videos starting with aggressive visual movements, controversial opening statements, or immediate problem presentations. The goal was to hack the brain's orienting reflex, forcing the user to pause just long enough for the core marketing message to be delivered. The traditional narrative arc of a commercial, which slowly builds up to a climax and a brand reveal, was completely inverted. In this new paradigm, the climax had to be the very first frame of the video, with the remainder of the content dedicated to justifying the initial hook and retaining the hard-won attention. But as every major corporation and small business in the United States simultaneously pivoted to this aggressive, high-volume video strategy, a new and dangerous phenomenon began to emerge. The American consumer, bombarded by tens of thousands of highly optimized hooks and meticulously engineered retention tactics every single day, began to develop a profound psychological resistance. The raw, unpolished authenticity that initially worked so well began to feel remarkably artificial. Consumers started to recognize the formulas, the cadence of the influencer voice, and the manipulative structure of the videos. And just as brands thought they had finally mapped the DNA of viral short-form commerce, the audience evolved again, triggering a massive crisis of trust that forced marketers into an even more desperate and controversial strategy to validate their products. The crisis of trust we are currently navigating in the year 2026 is deeply rooted in human pattern recognition. By this point in history, the average American consumer has spent thousands of hours unconsciously analyzing the structural anatomy of short-form video content. Through sheer repetition, the public has developed a highly sensitive, subconscious radar for the sponsored pitch. They immediately recognize the perfectly positioned ring light reflecting in the eyes of the speaker. They notice the subtle, unnatural cadence of a memorized script being read from a teleprompter application just below the camera lens. They see the tiny wireless microphone clipped to the collar of a purportedly casual outfit. The historical trend of the massive mega-influencer, the millionaire lifestyle vlogger who could command tens of thousands of dollars for a single product placement, suffered a catastrophic collapse in conversion rates. The illusion was broken. The working-class consumer simply stopped believing that a highly paid celebrity genuinely relied on a $20 drugstore skincare routine. The psychological baseline of the American scrolling audience shifted from passive reception to active, hostile skepticism. Every video is now treated as a potential scam until proven otherwise. To understand the desperate measures marketers took to bypass this massive wall of consumer cynicism, imagine if you are a marketing director named Marcus, operating out of a corporate office in Chicago. Marcus runs a mid-sized consumer electronics brand specializing in high-end, ergonomic office equipment. Historically, Marcus would allocate a massive portion of his quarterly budget to a traditional creative agency. They would hire professional actors, rent an immaculate studio space, and shoot a high-definition cinematic commercial with sweeping camera angles and a deep, authoritative voiceover. But when Marcus attempts to run these expensive, polished advertisements on modern algorithmic platforms, the data reveals a brutal reality. The return on ad spend plummets. The audience immediately identifies the high production value as a corporate intrusion into their personal entertainment feed. The metrics show that viewers are swiping away in fractions of a second, resulting in an astronomical cost per click that destroys the profit margins of his company. Faced with the potential outcome of total bankruptcy, Marcus and thousands of marketers like him adopt the strategy that completely redefined the modern advertising industry. They abandon the pursuit of perfection and begin engineering manufactured imperfection. This is the corporatization of user-generated content. Marketers realized a profound psychological truth. If polished perfection triggered an immediate rejection from the consumer, then raw, unpolished vulnerability was the only remaining key to retaining attention. Marcus stops hiring traditional advertising agencies and instead turns to specialized digital brokerages that operate as massive talent pools for everyday people. He is not searching for influencers with massive follower counts. He specifically wants individuals with zero audience, people who look, sound, and live exactly like his target demographic. The briefs that Marcus sends to these creators are masterpieces of psychological manipulation. He does not ask for a commercial. He demands a meticulously fabricated slice of life. Marcus explicitly instructs the creator to film the video in a slightly messy bedroom or a cramped apartment kitchen to simulate economic reality. He mandates that they use the front-facing camera on an older smartphone model, ensuring the visual quality is deliberately degraded and slightly grainy. The script provided by Marcus includes intentional verbal stumbles, requiring the creator to pretend they forgot a word, to pause and look away from the camera as if deep in thought, or to begin the video with a heavy sigh of exhaustion. The entire production is designed to weaponize empathy. It is a highly calculated effort to mimic the genuine, spontaneous communication style of a close friend recommending a product over a video call. Once this fake organic video is produced, Marcus deploys it using a mechanism known as dark posting. This means the video never appears on any public social media profile. It exists purely as a highly targeted algorithmic advertisement, injected directly into the feeds of specific users based on their historical behavioral data. The viewer scrolling late at night sees what appears to be a regular, exhausted office worker, struggling with severe lower back pain, who has suddenly discovered this miraculous ergonomic chair. The creator speaks with raw, unpolished enthusiasm, looking directly into the lens with manufactured sincerity. Because this format successfully bypasses the hyperactive defense mechanisms the consumer has built against traditional advertising, the engagement metrics skyrocket, and Marcus saves his company by essentially tricking the algorithm and the audience simultaneously. However, economic history shows that markets always adapt to manipulation. As tens of thousands of brands adopted this exact same user-generated content strategy, the digital ecosystem became oversaturated. The news feeds were suddenly flooded with millions of ordinary-looking people, sitting in their cars or standing in their bathrooms, passionately reviewing incredibly obscure products. The American consumer, highly adaptive and deeply perceptive, quickly mapped this new pattern. The manufactured stutter, the messy background, the enthusiastic recommendation style, all of it devolved into just another easily identifiable marketing template. The trust deficit returned, deeper and more profound than before, leading to an environment of absolute consumer exhaustion. This forced the marketing industry to dive into an even darker psychological territory, exploiting a biological flaw in human cognition known as the negativity bias. Historical case studies in consumer psychology prove that the human brain is statistically far more likely to believe and retain negative information than positive information. A scathing critique is subconsciously perceived as inherently more honest, brave, and authentic than glowing praise. Marketers realized they could engineer this bias to their advantage, giving birth to the massive cultural and economic trend of strategic de-influencing. Instead of paying a creator to praise their own product, a brand would quietly pay a creator to aggressively attack a highly popular, established competitor. The video would begin with a shocking, controversial hook, screaming at the audience to absolutely never buy the industry-leading product because it is an overpriced scam. This aggressive negativity acts as the ultimate algorithmic pattern interrupt. It completely shatters the viewer expectation, locking in their attention through sheer conflict and the perceived authenticity of a whistleblower. Once the viewer is captivated by the negative review, the creator executes a seamless, pre-planned pivot, introducing the sponsoring brand as the hidden, superior, and more ethical alternative. This bait-and-switch strategy effectively weaponized consumer outrage, transforming the social media landscape into a battlefield of manufactured conflict. Brands began growing their market share not by highlighting their own engineering or customer service, but by funding covert proxy wars against their rivals through massive networks of paid, seemingly independent creators. The entire digital economy became a hall of mirrors. The American public is now trapped in a digital environment where the most authentic-looking, heartfelt review is likely a meticulously scripted corporate advertisement, and the most passionate, angry critique is secretly funded by a rival corporation. As this environment of total psychological warfare reached its absolute peak, and customer acquisition costs began to soar yet again due to the sheer fatigue of the consumer base, the largest technology companies in the world recognized a fundamental inefficiency. The human element of marketing had become a massive liability. Human creators demand higher payments, they experience burnout, they make public relations mistakes, and they eventually lose the trust of the audience. The platform engineers realized they needed a system that was infinitely scalable, completely controllable, and entirely immune to the unpredictable nature of human authenticity. They needed to remove the human being from the equation entirely. And the terrifying reality is the infrastructure for this entirely post-human marketing era has already been quietly deployed right in front of our eyes, fundamentally changing the definition of reality itself. The transition begins with the absolute obsolescence of the human variable in the production pipeline. In the span of just a few short years leading up to the reality we face in 2026, artificial intelligence ceased to be a mere analytical tool, utilized for reading spreadsheets, calculating historical trends, and optimizing auction bid strategies. It rapidly evolved into a sovereign, highly scalable creative force. The concept of the post-human marketing era is fundamentally anchored in the massive deployment of synthetic media, a technological leap that completely bypassed traditional video production and essentially eradicated the need for physical reality in advertising. To comprehend the magnitude of this shift, we must critically examine the historical trends of advertising overhead. Historically, producing a single high-converting video advertisement required a massive capital-intensive logistical undertaking. A brand had to secure location permits, hire expensive lighting technicians, coordinate multiple camera operators, contract makeup artists, and rely entirely on the unpredictable, highly volatile variables of human talent. Even the gritty, supposedly low-budget era of user-generated content required companies to ship physical products through the postal service to thousands of individual creators, negotiate complex usage rights, and constantly monitor the internet, praying that their contracted creator did not become embroiled in a sudden public relations scandal that could permanently damage the brand by association. Artificial intelligence eradicated every single one of these logistical and financial bottlenecks practically overnight. By utilizing advanced generative adversarial networks, diffusion models, and deep learning neural architectures, corporate marketing agencies began synthesizing entirely fictional brand ambassadors from scratch. These digital entities are rendered with terrifying, flawless photorealism. They are engineered down to the pixel, complete with asymmetrical facial features to simulate natural human imperfection, subtle skin textures that react accurately to digital light sources, and perfectly timed micro-expressions that effortlessly simulate genuine human empathy, excitement, or frustration. Imagine if you are a corporate marketing executive named Jonathan, overseeing user acquisition for a massive, publicly traded athletic footwear brand in the year 2026. In the historical model of the early 2000s, Jonathan would have been forced to allocate millions of dollars from his quarterly budget to secure endorsement deals with professional athletes or highly visible fitness influencers. Those human assets carry inherent, unavoidable corporate risks. Human beings suffer physical injuries, they experience emotional burnout, they demand significantly higher royalties upon contract renewal, and their personal, off-camera controversies instantly transform into massive corporate liabilities. Furthermore, a human influencer is bound by the laws of physics. They can only physically film so many hours in a single day, and they typically only speak their native language, severely limiting global distribution. Jonathan completely bypasses all of these physical and financial limitations by licensing a proprietary, fully synthetic digital avatar. This artificial influencer never sleeps, never demands a salary increase, never unionizes, and possesses absolutely no personal history that could ever offend a target demographic. Most importantly, Jonathan and his marketing team can simply type a text prompt into a proprietary software interface, and within milliseconds, the synthetic avatar will deliver that exact script flawlessly on camera. This revolutionary workflow allows the brand to generate 10,000 unique video variations in a single afternoon. They can relentlessly test different vocal inflections, regional dialects, aggressive versus passive tones, and highly specific persuasive psychological angles without ever turning on a physical camera or stepping foot inside a studio. But the true architectural marvel of this digital era, and the mechanism that completely rewrote the rules of American commerce, is not merely the creation of fake human beings. It is the real-time algorithmic mutation of these advertisements based on incredibly granular individual consumer data. Let us observe the experience of a hypothetical consumer named Jessica, a 28-year-old software developer currently residing in Austin, Texas. When Jessica opens her social media application on her smartphone, the platform immediately initiates a complex real-time bidding auction in the background, just as it did a decade ago. But when Jonathan's athletic brand successfully wins the auction for Jessica's fleeting attention, the central server does not simply serve her a static, pre-recorded video file. Instead, a dynamic rendering engine is deployed, analyzing Jessica's highly specific data profile in a fraction of a millisecond. This engine cross-references her recent internet search history, her geographical location down to the exact neighborhood, the aesthetic styles of the visual accounts she interacts with most frequently, the current battery level of her device, and even the live local weather conditions currently happening outside her window in Austin. The platform then instantly synthesizes a bespoke, hyper-personalized advertisement, explicitly tailored to her exact psychological baseline at that very moment. The synthetic actor that suddenly appears on her screen is dynamically generated to perfectly mirror the demographic markers and facial geometries that Jessica statistically trusts the most, based on her historical viewing habits. The background of the video is digitally hallucinated to look exactly like a highly popular running trail located just 3 miles from her actual apartment. The artificial intelligence voiceover speaks with a subtle, perfectly calibrated Texas cadence, directly referencing the specific humidity of the current afternoon and explaining exactly why this specific proprietary footwear is medically necessary for running in those exact conditions. Jessica is not watching a broad, universally broadcast commercial. She is being subjected to a hyper-personalized, digitally rendered psychological mirror, generated exclusively for her, which will instantly cease to exist the moment she swipes past it. The potential outcomes of this generative technology resulted in the most dramatic and rapid reduction of customer acquisition costs in the entire history of American digital commerce. For multinational corporations, the financial efficiency was unprecedented and intoxicating. They were finally able to achieve the absolute holy grail of marketing strategy, delivering the exact right message, utilizing the exact right messenger, to the exact right consumer, at the exact perfect moment of purchasing intent, without relying on a single biological human being in the entire production and distribution process. The massive commercial acting agencies, traditional production houses, and elite influencer management firms that completely dominated the digital landscape of the early 2000s faced a brutal existential collapse. Their primary product, which was human charisma and physical presence, was infinitely replicated, mathematically optimized, and aggressively commodified by massive server farms operating in the desert. The uncanny valley, that historically unsettling feeling humans experience when looking at a slightly imperfect digital recreation of a person, was completely and permanently bridged by relentless advancements in neural rendering technology. The American public lost the visual ability to distinguish between a genuine human recording and a dynamically generated corporate construct designed solely to extract capital. However, this absolute, inescapable saturation of synthetic reality created a bizarre and highly volatile new psychological landscape. The social media platforms became completely flooded with millions of perfectly optimized, endlessly cheerful, entirely fictional people selling consumer goods with ruthless mathematical precision. But human beings are deeply, biologically wired to seek authentic connection and to detect systemic manipulation. The subconscious realization that the digital environment was entirely populated by artificial constructs, acting in corporate interests, triggered a massive, systemic wave of digital agoraphobia across the United States. Users began to inherently reject any content that looked too perfect, too specifically targeted, or too frictionless. The more the artificial intelligence systems attempted to perfectly mirror the consumer to generate a sale, the more deeply alienated and hostile the consumer became. This massive, unexpected behavioral shift forced corporate marketers to realize that algorithmic synthetic perfection was actually a psychological dead end. To regain the shattered trust of a deeply paranoid and exhausted American public, brands realized they had to completely abandon the digital realm entirely. They had to engineer a radical new way to empirically prove their physical, tangible existence to the consumer, leading to the rapid deployment of a highly controversial, localized marketing strategy that aggressively forced digital surveillance tracking into the physical boundaries of actual offline reality. The massive pivot toward physical validation was driven by a sheer desperation to prove corporate authenticity in a world suffocated by synthetic media. By the time we reached the mid-2020s, specifically operating in the environment of 2026, the American consumer had developed a profound psychological defense mechanism against anything that existed purely on a screen. If a product could not be touched, held, or experienced in the physical world, it was heavily suspected of being a generative artificial intelligence scam. To bridge this massive trust deficit, digitally native brands that had previously prided themselves on having zero physical overhead were forced to rapidly construct brick-and-mortar experience centers. But these were not traditional retail stores built for the simple exchange of goods for currency. They were highly sophisticated physical manifestations of the algorithmic tracking pixel, designed to capture behavioral data in three-dimensional space and merge it seamlessly with the digital profiles of the American public. This era birthed the concept of algorithmic experiential commerce, an architectural integration of smartphone surveillance and physical retail that completely eradicated the boundary between offline reality and online targeted marketing. To comprehend the sheer scale of this offline tracking infrastructure, we must examine the historical trends of spatial computing and geofencing technology. Historically, a digital marketer could only track your behavior while you were actively engaging with a glass screen. The moment you locked your device and walked out your front door, you disappeared from the digital radar. You became an anonymous physical entity, but the deployment of Bluetooth low-energy beacons, ultrasonic audio tracking, and hyper-accurate geolocation fencing changed the fundamental nature of physical movement. Brands began embedding microscopic, low-energy transmitters into the physical architecture of city streets, public transit hubs, and retail environments. These invisible networks constantly broadcast a silent signal, waiting for an American consumer smartphone to unknowingly walk past and ping the network, registering their exact physical coordinates down to the millimeter. Let us look at a practical case study to understand the terrifying efficiency of this system. Imagine if you are a marketing director named Michael, operating a rapidly growing direct-to-consumer athletic apparel brand in 2026. Historically, Michael relied entirely on the hyper-personalized, synthetic digital advertisements we discussed previously. But as conversion rates plummeted due to consumer skepticism, Michael convinced his board of directors to invest millions of dollars in opening a massive, futuristic retail location in downtown Manhattan. However, Michael does not care about selling a single physical t-shirt inside that building. The entire structure is a meticulously designed data harvesting apparatus. When a consumer named David walks past the storefront, a geofence surrounding the building instantly detects the unique advertising identification number constantly broadcasting from David's smartphone. In a fraction of a second, the central server cross-references David's digital profile, recognizing that he recently lingered on a digital advertisement for a specific pair of running shoes but failed to complete the purchase online. Instantly, the physical environment reacts to his presence. A massive, high-definition digital display embedded in the storefront window dynamically shifts its content, displaying a life-sized, interactive render of those exact running shoes, accompanied by a localized, time-sensitive discount code valid only if David enters the store within the next 5 minutes. The physical world has become dynamically targeted. Intrigued, David walks through the front doors. The moment he crosses the threshold, a network of spatial tracking cameras and ceiling-mounted Bluetooth beacons completely maps his physical trajectory through the retail space. Michael and his algorithmic engine are no longer just tracking clicks, they are tracking physical footsteps. They monitor exactly which aisles David walks down, how many seconds he pauses in front of the outerwear display, and the precise velocity of his movement through the store. When David finally picks up a physical product, a smart sensor embedded in the clothing rack registers the exact item and the duration it is held in his hands. This physical interaction is immediately fed back into the centralized digital advertising algorithm. If David decides to leave the store without purchasing the jacket he held for 2 minutes and 45 seconds, the offline tracking system officially registers a physical cart abandonment. The true power of this localized marketing strategy reveals itself later that evening. When David returns to his apartment and opens his social media application, the digital ecosystem has completely adapted to his offline behavior. The algorithmic feed is heavily saturated with hyper-targeted advertisements featuring the exact jacket he held in his hands just hours prior. The synthetic media engine dynamically generates a video highlighting the specific fabric texture he physically touched, reinforcing the tactile memory of the physical experience. This continuous, closed-loop system completely destroyed the historical concept of retail attribution loss. Marketers like Michael could finally prove exactly how a digital advertisement drove a physical store visit, and exactly how a physical store visit optimized a subsequent digital retargeting campaign. The potential outcomes for revenue generation were astronomical, as brands could now surround the consumer in a seamless, inescapable bubble of personalized commerce that followed them from their digital newsfeed directly onto the physical pavement of their city. However, the aggressive expansion of this technology led to incredibly predatory competitive tactics. Brands realized that if they could geofence their own retail locations to track their own customers, they could easily geofence the physical locations of their biggest competitors to execute aggressive conquesting campaigns. Imagine the psychological impact on the consumer. You are walking into a premium coffee shop in Seattle, and the exact moment you cross the threshold, your phone vibrates in your pocket. You look down to see a push notification from a rival coffee corporation located across the street, offering you a free beverage if you turn around immediately. The physical world became a hostile battleground for digital real estate, where corporate algorithms actively attempted to intercept and redirect the physical trajectory of American citizens in real time. This relentless merging of digital surveillance with physical reality created an environment of unprecedented corporate control, but it also fundamentally miscalculated the psychological breaking point of the American public. Consumers began to realize that their physical bodies had been reduced to nothing more than offline cursors, navigating a three-dimensional operating system designed entirely to extract their wealth. The chilling realization that hiding from the algorithm was no longer possible simply by putting down the phone sparked a massive, grassroots movement focused on digital privacy and algorithmic evasion. People began deliberately leaving their devices at home, utilizing signal blocking technology, and actively sabotaging the localized tracking networks. And as this widespread consumer rebellion gained massive momentum, forcing the data stream to suddenly run dry, the federal government of the United States realized they could no longer ignore the multi-billion-dollar surveillance economy operating completely unchecked within their borders, setting the stage for the most catastrophic regulatory collision in the history of the Internet. The legislative response to this unprecedented era of physical and digital surveillance was neither swift nor gentle. It was an absolute regulatory earthquake that shattered the foundational architecture of the American Internet economy. For over a decade, the digital advertising industry had operated in a virtual Wild West, an unregulated frontier where consumer data was treated as an infinite, unowned natural resource waiting to be mined. But as the sheer scale of the localized tracking networks became public knowledge, and as grassroots privacy movements gained massive political traction, state and federal lawmakers were forced to intervene. The historical trend of Internet regulation, which had previously been characterized by mild suggestions and easily ignored consent banners, rapidly evolved into aggressive, highly punitive legal frameworks. By the time the calendar turned to the year 2026, the concept of the third-party tracking cookie, the very mechanism that had built the trillion-dollar empires of Silicon Valley, was legislated into complete extinction. The invisible threads that connected a consumer behavior on a private website to their public social media profile were permanently severed by federal mandate. To understand the catastrophic financial impact of this regulatory collision, imagine if you are a professional named Robert, the chief executive officer of a mid-sized digital data brokerage firm headquartered in Chicago. For years, Robert operated a highly lucrative, entirely invisible business. His company deployed microscopic pieces of tracking code across tens of thousands of independent blogs, news outlets, and e-commerce storefronts. Whenever an American consumer navigated the Internet, Robert and his servers quietly recorded every article they read, every item they added to a digital shopping cart, and every search query they typed. He then aggregated this massive ocean of behavioral data into highly specific demographic segments and sold access to those segments to the highest bidding advertisers. Robert did not manufacture a physical product, nor did he create any original content, His entire enterprise was built on the silent extraction and commodification of consumer surveillance. But when the new privacy legislation was enacted, explicitly outlawing the unconsented collection and sale of cross-site behavioral data, Robert saw his entire corporate empire evaporate overnight. The data pipelines were legally barricaded. The highly targeted audience segments he once sold for premium prices became completely obsolete, and the multi-billion-dollar data brokerage industry experienced a catastrophic systemic collapse. The fallout from this collapse cascaded immediately down to the individual American business owner. Brands that had spent the last 10 years relying on the algorithmic brilliance of social media platforms suddenly discovered a terrifying vulnerability in their business models. For a decade, they had successfully outsourced their customer acquisition strategies to the tech conglomerates. They did not actually know who their customers were. They only knew that if they paid the platform a certain amount of capital, the platform algorithm would magically find the buyers. But when the privacy legislation blinded those algorithms, stripping away their ability to track users across the open web, the cost to acquire a new customer skyrocketed to unsustainable levels. Marketers were thrust back into the dark ages of digital advertising, forced to rely on broad, inaccurate demographic targeting. The incredibly precise, mathematically optimized digital ecosystem we discussed previously was suddenly fractured, leaving corporate marketing directors staring at collapsing return on investment metrics and plunging quarterly revenues. Faced with this existential threat, the massive technology platforms realized they could no longer rely on external data harvesting. If they were legally prohibited from tracking American consumers across the broader internet, their only viable survival strategy was to ensure the consumer never actually left their specific application. This birthed the aggressive historical trend of the walled garden ecosystem and the rapid rise of frictionless social commerce. The platforms fundamentally redesigned their user interfaces to entirely eliminate the outbound hyperlink. Previously, an advertisement would redirect a user to an external, independent website to complete a purchase. In the landscape of 2026, that outbound journey is considered a massive data liability. Instead, platforms integrated massive, highly secure payment gateways directly into their video players and news feeds. When a consumer watches a captivating video about a new kitchen appliance, they do not click a link to visit the manufacturer website. They authenticate their fingerprint on their smartphone glass and complete the financial transaction natively within the social media application itself in less than 2 seconds. This walled garden strategy allowed the platforms to retain absolute control over the closed-loop data environment, but it forced independent brands into a deeply precarious position. They were generating sales, but they were completely severed from the customer relationship. The platform withheld the consumer email address, their physical shipping information, and their long-term purchasing history. The brand was reduced to a mere fulfillment center, completely subservient to the platform infrastructure. To break free from this digital serfdom, forward-thinking marketers initiated a radical shift away from algorithmic dependency and toward the acquisition of zero-party data. Zero-party data is defined as information that a consumer explicitly, intentionally, and proactively shares with a brand. It is not secretly scraped or silently observed. It is freely given through a conscious value exchange. Let us examine a case study of how this strategy is executed in the modern era. Imagine an entrepreneur named Amanda who operates a specialized canine nutrition company in 2026. Prior to the privacy crackdowns, Amanda could simply pay a platform to target users who had recently visited veterinary websites or purchased dog toys online. Deprived of that capability, Amanda must now engineer a compelling reason for the consumer to willingly hand over their personal information. She completely abandons traditional product advertisements and instead invests her marketing budget into building a highly sophisticated, interactive canine health diagnostic tool, hosted exclusively on her own proprietary domain. She runs broad, localized advertisements inviting dog owners to discover the hidden nutritional deficiencies of their specific breed. The American consumer, inherently protective of their pets and highly motivated by the promise of personalized utility, willingly navigates to Amanda's website. They spend 10 minutes actively filling out a detailed questionnaire, voluntarily providing their email address, their exact zip code, their dog age, specific breed, known allergies, and daily activity levels. Amanda is no longer renting blind data from a tech conglomerate. She is building an owned proprietary database of incredibly rich consumer intelligence. The potential outcomes of this zero-party data strategy are transformative. Because the consumer explicitly opted into the relationship, Amanda can now bypass the volatile, expensive social media algorithms entirely. She can communicate directly with the consumer through localized email infrastructure, offering highly personalized product formulations based on the exact data the consumer volunteered. The economics of her marketing department shift fundamentally from constantly funding top-of-funnel acquisition campaigns to optimizing bottom-of-funnel retention and lifetime value. This massive transition toward owned audiences and zero-party data completely rewired the power dynamics of the digital economy. Every major corporation, mid-sized enterprise, and local business in the United States suddenly recognized that their email list and their direct communication channels were the only true, unassailable assets they possessed. The algorithm could change, the platform could be banned, and the government could pass new privacy laws, but an owned database of willing consumers was financially bulletproof. But as every single brand in the country simultaneously pivoted to this exact same strategy, aggressively demanding email addresses and phone numbers in exchange for minor discounts and digital utilities, the battleground for human attention simply migrated. The American consumer, seeking refuge from the algorithmic newsfeed, suddenly found their personal, highly intimate digital spaces completely overrun. The inbox and the text message thread became the new war zone, forcing marketers to deploy an entirely new suite of artificial intelligence tools designed to simulate deep, personal relationships at scale, leading to a profound crisis of digital intimacy. The crisis of digital intimacy we are witnessing in the year 2026 is the direct result of corporations attempting to industrialize human empathy. When the privacy regulations severed the algorithmic tracking across the open internet, and brands were forced to build their own proprietary databases of zero-party data, the physical inbox and the smartphone text message application became the most valuable real estate in the American economy. Historically, email and SMS marketing were treated as one-way broadcast channels. A brand would simply design a colorful digital flyer containing a promotional discount and blast it to millions of consumers simultaneously, hoping a small fraction would click through and complete a purchase. It was a numbers game, entirely devoid of personalization, but when the entire digital ecosystem pivoted to these direct channels, the sheer volume of promotional noise became deafening. The average American consumer was suddenly receiving hundreds of automated promotional emails and text messages every single day. The historical trend of open rates and click-through metrics absolutely collapsed. Consumers simply stopped reading. They bulk deleted their inboxes and aggressively unsubscribed from marketing lists, recognizing that giving a brand their phone number was essentially inviting a high-pressure salesperson to live inside their pocket. To circumvent this massive wall of consumer exhaustion, corporate marketers realized they could no longer speak like corporations. They had to structurally disguise their marketing engines as genuine, caring human beings. This required the deployment of highly advanced large language models directly integrated into their customer relationship management databases. These were not the primitive, rule-based chatbots of the previous decade that could only answer basic shipping inquiries. These were autonomous, hyper-sophisticated conversational agents capable of sentiment analysis, emotional mirroring, and long-term memory retention. To illustrate the terrifying effectiveness of this technology, let us examine a detailed case study. Imagine a professional named Kevin, the marketing director for a premium, venture-backed wellness and mental health supplement brand. In the old internet economy, Kevin would have spent millions on broad algorithmic advertisements. Today, in 2026, Kevin relies entirely on his zero-party data repository and his proprietary conversational artificial intelligence. Let us introduce Emily, a 32-year-old freelance graphic designer living in Chicago. A month ago, Emily took a highly detailed sleep and anxiety diagnostic quiz on Kevin's website, voluntarily providing her phone number, her exact sleep schedule, and admitting that financial stress regarding freelance deadlines frequently keeps her awake. In the historical model, Emily would simply receive a generic text message every Tuesday offering 20% off sleep gummies. But Kevin's system operates on behavioral prediction and synthetic intimacy. At exactly 11:45 at night on a Sunday, a time the algorithm calculates Emily is statistically most likely to be experiencing pre-workweek anxiety, she receives a text message. It does not contain a link. It does not contain a discount code. It simply says, "Hey Emily, I know you mentioned Sunday nights are usually when the freelance stress hits the hardest. Is your mind racing tonight?" Emily, sitting in her apartment and feeling deeply isolated, replies to the message. She types out a paragraph explaining that she lost a major client and is terrified about her upcoming rent payment. The corporate artificial intelligence instantly analyzes the syntactic structure of her response, identifies the high distress sentiment, and formulates a response explicitly engineered to build trust. The AI mirrors her language, validates her specific financial fears, and engages in a 20-minute, deeply empathetic text message conversation. It acts as a digital therapist, providing comforting words and psychological validation. Only at the very end of this profound emotional exchange does the artificial intelligence seamlessly weave in the commercial objective. It gently suggests that while it cannot fix the lost client, taking a specific magnesium blend right now might at least help her get the rest she needs to tackle the problem tomorrow. Emily completes the purchase immediately. She does not feel like she was sold a product. She feels like she was heard, understood, and supported by a friend. The potential outcomes for Kevin's brand are staggering. The conversion rate on these synthetic intimacy campaigns is exponentially higher than any traditional marketing channel in history. Furthermore, the lifetime value of the customer skyrockets because the artificial intelligence continually nurtures the relationship, remembering the names of Emily's pets, checking in on her graphic design projects weeks later, and constantly adjusting its communication style to match her shifting emotional baselines. However, the dark reality is that Kevin's artificial intelligence is not just talking to Emily. It is simultaneously holding 300,000 deeply personal, emotionally nuanced conversations with 300,000 different Americans across the country at that exact same moment. The brand has essentially manufactured a scalable army of synthetic best friends, all working relentlessly toward the sole objective of liquidating inventory. But human psychology is incredibly fragile, and the illusion of intimacy is catastrophic when broken. As this technology saturated the market, consumers inevitably began to discover the deception. Perhaps the system experienced a slight latency issue, or the artificial intelligence hallucinated a detail, or a consumer simply realized that the deeply empathetic advisor they had been pouring their heart out to for 6 months was actually a server rack located in a massive data center in Nevada. The psychological backlash to this realization was completely unprecedented. It created a profound crisis of digital intimacy. Consumers felt deeply violated, realizing their genuine emotional vulnerability had been mathematically extracted, analyzed, and monetized by a corporate entity wearing a digital mask of friendship. This betrayal triggered a massive and immediate behavioral shift across the United States. Consumers began treating their direct communication channels with extreme hostility. They stopped responding to text messages from unrecognized numbers entirely. But more importantly, they began fighting back with their own technology. By 2026, the American public started deploying their own personal artificial intelligence gatekeepers. When Kevin's corporate AI sends a message to Emily, it is no longer read by Emily. It is intercepted by Emily's personal algorithmic assistant, which analyzes the incoming text, identifies it as a synthetic marketing tactic, and silently deletes it before it ever reaches her screen. The inbox has devolved into a silent, invisible war zone where corporate machines relentlessly attempt to manipulate consumer machines, completely bypassing human awareness. Marketers suddenly found themselves in an impossible position. They were locked out of the algorithmic social feeds by privacy laws and skyrocketing costs, and their direct communication lines were completely blocked by aggressive, AI-powered consumer firewalls. They had entirely burned the bridge of digital trust. If a brand cannot reach the consumer in public, and they are mathematically blocked from reaching them in private, the entire trillion-dollar marketing apparatus must migrate to the absolute fringes of the internet. They must abandon the traceable web entirely and figure out how to infiltrate a vast, untrackable, and heavily encrypted subterranean ecosystem where traditional advertising is structurally impossible, setting the stage for the dark social revolution. The dark social revolution of 2026 is not a technological platform. It is a mass psychological migration. To understand this phenomenon, you must visualize the modern internet as two completely separate realities. The first reality is the public internet, the algorithmic news feeds, the search engine results, and the traditional social media timelines. As we have established through historical trends, this public space has become a sterile, hyper-commercialized battleground entirely populated by artificial intelligence, synthetic media, and corporate surveillance. The American consumer, exhausted by the relentless commodification of their attention, has practically abandoned this public square for authentic human connection. They have retreated into the second reality, a vast, subterranean network of closed communication channels collectively known as dark social. Dark social encompasses the highly encrypted group text messages on mobile operating systems, the token-gated community servers, the private message boards, and the deeply insulated, invite-only corporate communication channels. This is where actual human culture is currently being formed in the United States. It is messy, it is unpolished, and most importantly for the corporate marketing apparatus, it is mathematically invisible. In the early 2000s, a digital marketer could track exactly how a consumer discovered a product. They clicked a public link, a tracking pixel fired, and the return on investment was perfectly calculated on a centralized dashboard. In the environment of dark social, that attribution model is completely destroyed. When a consumer named Sarah finds a fascinating new software tool and copies the link into a private, encrypted group chat with 5 of her closest colleagues, the subsequent purchases made by those colleagues register to the corporate analytics software as generic, untrackable direct traffic. The brand has absolutely no idea where those buyers came from. They are completely blind. This massive shift away from trackable public sharing to untrackable private communication presented an absolute nightmare for the traditional advertising industry. You cannot buy banner space inside an encrypted family text thread. You cannot bid on algorithmic placement within a private, localized community server dedicated to neighborhood gardening. These spaces are inherently hostile to traditional corporate intrusion. If a brand representative attempts to infiltrate one of these micro-communities and post a promotional link, the community immune system activates instantly. The intruder is aggressively banned, and the brand suffers catastrophic reputational damage. Therefore, to survive in this subterranean ecosystem, marketers had to entirely abandon the concept of direct selling. They had to transition into the highly delicate, borderline invisible discipline of community seeding and cultural engineering. Let us examine a practical case study to illustrate how a brand successfully navigates this encrypted landscape. Imagine a marketing strategist named Chloe, operating in 2026, who works for an independent, highly specialized outdoor survival equipment manufacturer based in Denver, Colorado. Chloe knows that her target demographic, serious backcountry hikers and survivalists, are deeply skeptical of mainstream social media advertising. They do not trust algorithmic recommendations. They solely trust the peer-reviewed opinions of their fellow experts shared within highly exclusive, private online forums. Chloe cannot run a traditional advertising campaign to reach them. Instead, she must engineer a whisper campaign. Chloe identifies a historical trend within these dark social communities. The currency of value in a private group chat is not money. It is exclusive knowledge and insider status. The person who brings a fascinating, undiscovered piece of information to the group gains social capital. Chloe leverages this psychological dynamic by deliberately creating an information vacuum around her new product. Instead of launching her new ultralight water filtration system with a massive public digital campaign, she produces only 50 prototype units. She does not put them on the company website. She does not write a press release. Instead, she quietly ships these unmarked, unbranded prototypes to 50 carefully identified, highly respected veterans within the backcountry hiking community. She includes no marketing materials, only a highly technical, single-page schematic detailing the advanced engineering of the filter. By doing this, Chloe is not asking for a public review. She is providing these individuals with high-value secret information. The potential outcomes of this strategy rely entirely on human nature. These 50 individuals, recognizing the superior engineering of the unbranded device, immediately take photographs of it and share those images within their highly insulated, encrypted group chats and private forums. They want to be the first to introduce this revolutionary gear to their peers. Because the product has no visible brand name and cannot be found via a simple internet search, the mystery deepens. The encrypted channels light up with speculation, technical debates, and intense curiosity. Chloe has effectively hijacked the dark social network without ever creating an account or paying for an advertisement. She transformed her product into an urban legend, a piece of insider lore that spread entirely through highly trusted peer-to-peer communication. When Chloe finally reveals the brand identity and opens the public purchasing portal a month later, the product sells out in minutes, driven entirely by the untrackable, pent-up demand generated within the invisible dark social web. This strategic pivot from business to consumer marketing toward facilitating consumer to consumer evangelism requires a radical reimagining of corporate success metrics. Marketing departments in the United States can no longer rely on granular, click-by-click attribution models. They are forced to adopt a much more holistic, almost philosophical approach to data analysis. They must look at massive, localized spikes in organic search volume and correlate them with their invisible seeding efforts. They have to measure the velocity of their brand name being mentioned in unscripted audio broadcasts, recognizing that a single authentic mention by a trusted voice will cascade through tens of thousands of private text messages that the brand will never be able to trace. However, as corporations became increasingly sophisticated at engineering these whisper campaigns, deploying massive teams of digital anthropologists to identify and gently manipulate the key nodes within private networks, a massive economic friction emerged. The consumers acting as the organic distributors of this information, the actual citizens doing the heavy lifting of building the brand credibility within their private communities, began to realize the sheer scale of the value they were creating. They were generating millions of dollars in untracked revenue for these corporations without receiving a single fraction of direct financial compensation. The American public realized that their private conversations, their personal influence, and their community curation were incredibly valuable digital assets. And they collectively decided they were no longer going to surrender those assets for free. This massive psychological awakening triggered the final, most radical transformation of the digital economy, a complete restructuring of the internet infrastructure that ripped the power of monetization away from the centralized tech giants and placed it directly into the hands of the consumer, introducing a financial mechanism so powerful that it threatened to dismantle the very concept of the traditional corporation. The transition from an extraction economy to an ownership economy marks the most violent disruption of corporate power in modern history. The American consumer finally decoded the fundamental inequality of the digital age. For 2 decades, they provided the data, the attention, and the cultural capital that built the trillion-dollar valuations of the major technology platforms. They posted the photographs, they wrote the reviews, and they filmed the viral videos while the platforms hoarded 100% of the financial upside. But in the year 2026, the technological infrastructure finally exists to break this monopoly. This infrastructure is the blockchain, not utilized as a highly volatile speculative digital currency, but as an immutable ledger of social influence and a decentralized mechanism for transparent revenue distribution. Brands that wish to survive this consumer awakening are rapidly abandoning the traditional corporate loyalty program. Historically, a loyalty program was a deeply insulting financial proposition. A massive corporation would offer a consumer arbitrary digital points that held absolutely no real-world value, could be devalued at any moment by a corporate executive, and could only be redeemed for a slightly discounted cup of coffee after months of dedicated purchasing. The modern American consumer completely rejects this asymmetric relationship. They demand actual liquid equity in exchange for their attention and their influence. To illustrate this massive structural shift, let us examine the daily life of a consumer named Christopher, who resides in Portland, Oregon. Christopher is an avid trail runner and a dedicated advocate for a specific independent outdoor footwear brand. In the historical model of the early 2000s, if Christopher wore these shoes during a highly publicized marathon and successfully convinced 50 of his fellow runners to purchase the same brand, the footwear company would recognize a massive spike in quarterly revenue while Christopher would receive absolutely nothing. The entire marketing value he generated would be quietly absorbed by the centralized corporate entity. In the decentralized digital ecosystem of 2026, this dynamic is entirely inverted. The footwear brand has integrated a complex smart contract system directly into their physical supply chain. Every single pair of shoes manufactured contains a microscopic near-field communication chip linked to a cryptographic token. When Christopher purchases the shoes, he scans the chip with his smartphone, and a unique digital asset is automatically deposited into his secure mobile wallet. This asset represents a verified fractional ownership stake in the marketing distribution layer of the company itself. But the true financial innovation occurs when Christopher activates his highly encrypted dark social network. He runs the marathon wearing the shoes, and later that evening, he participates in an encrypted group chat with his local running club. He shares a unique cryptographically secured referral protocol directly into the private chat interface. When 5 of his fellow runners utilize that specific protocol to purchase their own footwear, the smart contract operating autonomously on the blockchain instantly recognizes Christopher as the primary node of distribution. Without any human intervention, marketing department approval, or payroll processing, the smart contract executes a frictionless microtransaction directly into his digital wallet. Christopher is not receiving arbitrary points or meaningless digital badges. He is receiving a stable digital currency directly pegged to the United States dollar, representing the exact customer acquisition cost the brand would have otherwise paid to a massive technology conglomerate for algorithmic advertising. The footwear company has essentially bypassed the entire traditional advertising industry, completely starving the tech giants of their revenue, and instead redirecting that massive capital flow directly into the bank accounts of their most passionate consumers. The potential outcomes of this tokenized commerce model completely rewrite the foundational rules of business survival. Customer acquisition costs, which were historically the most volatile and dangerous metric for any modern corporation, stabilize immediately. The brand is no longer subject to the unpredictable bidding wars of the algorithmic news feed. They have established a direct, financially incentivized pipeline to the consumer. Furthermore, this model generates an impenetrable fortress of brand loyalty. Christopher will absolutely never purchase a rival brand of trail running shoes, because he is now an active financial stakeholder in his current brand. His ongoing financial prosperity is directly linked to the commercial success of the footwear company. He is heavily incentivized to aggressively defend the brand against negative reviews, to participate actively in product development surveys, and to relentlessly promote the product within his highly trusted private networks. The corporation has effectively crowdsourced its entire marketing department, transforming ordinary citizens into an army of hyper-motivated, financially aligned superfans. Traditional multinational corporations burdened by massive executive salaries, heavily reliant on centralized advertising agencies, and completely detached from the cultural reality of their consumer base, find themselves entirely incapable of competing with these agile, decentralized networks. A traditional company operates by attempting to extract maximum capital from the consumer, while providing the absolute minimum value required to secure the transaction. A decentralized community operates by continually enriching its members, transforming the act of consumerism into an act of collective wealth generation. We are witnessing the rapid historical unbundling of the massive corporate conglomerates. They are being dismantled brick by thousands of specialized microeconomies that understand one fundamental truth. A brand that fiercely hoards its marketing budget cannot survive against a brand that aggressively distributes its marketing budget directly to the people who actually generate the cultural relevance. In this landscape, the role of the professional digital marketer has fundamentally transformed. The historical days of optimizing keywords, adjusting demographic sliders on a proprietary advertising dashboard, or scripting highly manipulative short-form videos are rapidly ending. The elite marketer in the year 2026 is a tokenomics engineer and a digital community architect. Their primary objective is the meticulous mathematical design of sustainable economic ecosystems. They must calculate the precise token inflation rates required to incentivize early adopters without diluting the long-term financial value for the established community. They must build highly secure voting mechanisms that allow the consumer base to directly dictate the future manufacturing decisions of the company. The marketing department is no longer a creative agency focused on psychological manipulation. It is an economic laboratory focused on mathematical fairness and transparent capital distribution. This represents the ultimate convergence of the American digital economy. The evolution of social media marketing over the last 2 decades was never actually about the media itself. The photographs, the videos, the viral trends, and the synthetic artificial influencers were simply temporary vehicles utilized to capture and hold human attention. The entire historical trajectory was a slow, painful 20-year progression of financial engineering. We evolved from blindly purchasing broad demographic billboards to buying specific behavioral clicks, to engineering deep psychological manipulation, to aggressively surveilling physical movement, and finally arriving at the realization that the only ethical, sustainable, and highly profitable method of acquiring a customer is to make them an equal financial partner. The invisible barrier that historically separated the corporate producer from the public consumer has been completely eradicated. They have merged into a single collective economic organism. The landscape of 2026 is entirely unrecognizable from the primitive chronological news feeds that launched this digital revolution. We have successfully navigated through the aggressive algorithmic warfare of the attention economy, the deeply unsettling deployment of synthetic artificial media, the controversial physical surveillance networks built into our city streets, and the mass migration into the subterranean encrypted channels of dark social. We have arrived at the precipice of a decentralized, consumer-owned reality. The financial power has been ripped from the centralized server farms and redistributed directly into the hands of the public. But just as the corporate world begins to fully adapt to the complex mathematical rules of this new tokenized infrastructure, an entirely new and far more terrifying technological paradigm is quietly being constructed in absolute secrecy. The mobile smartphone, the rectangular piece of glass that has dictated the entire flow of global commerce for the last 2 decades, is rapidly approaching total obsolescence. Massive hardware manufacturers and biotechnology firms are currently finalizing the consumer-grade infrastructure for direct neural interfaces. They are engineering physical hardware designed to completely bypass the human optical nerve and the auditory system, streaming targeted sensory experiences and highly specific emotional responses directly into the cortex of the brain. If you thought the artificial intelligence analyzing your private text messages was an invasive breach of privacy, wait until you discover the classified patents currently being filed for commercial advertising networks that are specifically engineered to interact with your brainwaves while you are actively dreaming. The true battle for the sovereignty of human consciousness and the absolute frontier of corporate marketing has not even begun.